Guys, welcome to another episode of The Pulse. By now, you know what we do. We get cool people. They've got great stories. Star of stage and screen, Anthony Rapp joins us on The Pulse. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
We're sitting here before the show starts singing old Sesame Street song. So
yes.
That was the connection.
Yes,
it's
yes.
my mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm singing to a Broadway star.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't do that.
No, it's all right.
When you walked in, I was telling you that myself, our director, producer, the group of people in here, and we were playing 6 Degrees of Anthony. I feel like everybody knows you from something different. Is that like it's a fair assessment?
It's probably true.
Broadway
and by the way, I was also in the original Broadway production and the film version of 6 Degrees of Separation.
Okay.
So there's that.
Then
I mean,
fits.
a small role in that, but yeah. Yeah, like, and so I play poker. I don't get to do it very often anymore because of my toddlers, but I had a friend that I would play poker with. We would sit at the table together, and then he would notice somebody recognizing me, and then as they were getting ready to ask like where they know me from, he would always go, "You ever see Star Wars?" I've not been in Star Wars.
Okay.
And they would go,
like, "That's why I know."
Yeah.
Right.
It's not true. I wasn't in Star Wars. But that was before I got cast in Star Trek Discovery.
Okay.
So I'd credit him for planting the seed that I would enter the sci-fi universe.
That's got to be a cool feeling. I mean, it means a successful, sustainable career that you've done that much.
Yeah, it's cool. And generally, if I get recognized, it happens fairly often, but generally people are nice, they're warm, they're kind, they're grateful. Yeah. They're not like... it's not like I've always said this, I think it's really true. I would never want to be the level of famous where you can't walk down the street without being like harassed.
How'd you get into this? Like you've had a long, sustainable career. What made you start?
My mom was a nurse. She was a single mother nurse. I had an older brother, older sister, and she got a job at a summer camp when I was 6. I went there, and I don't remember why because I was 6.
Right.
But I auditioned for the musical that summer. And I got the role of the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz. I loved it. Went back the next summer, did 2 more shows. And then when I grew up in Joliet, Illinois, outside Chicago. Okay. And I found an ad for a local musical production of A Christmas Carol. And I called and scheduled myself an audition. I was like 7 or 8 years old. Again, this is pre-internet. This is pre any social media. This is pre like reality TV. I had no idea what show business was or acting career or anything. Yeah. I just wanted to do it. And so I don't know where that ambition came from to call and schedule myself an audition. I feel like I should be more ambitious now than I was when I was a kid. But anyway, I did a lot of community theater, and there were a couple directors that were just like encouraging to my mom to try to, they were like, he could probably get professional work if you wanted to try doing that. Okay. And we were like, okay. Like there was no grand plan. It wasn't like it's not like these Major League Baseball players who were like drilling their kids in the backyard.
Right. It wasn't an acting family.
No.
It wasn't.
My mom was a nurse. I mean, it was just something that she was just happy to support me doing it, and I was grateful. Now I can see all these years later I had some inkling, but I do not know how she made it work. She made it work. She made it possible. And I auditioned for a couple of things in Chicago when I was like 9 and got them. And then the rest, I just sort of one foot in front of the other and kept working. Okay.
And you just loved it, so you pursued it. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to be the biggest television or movie star, because it's been a lot. It's TV, it's movies, it's theater. Mm-hmm. You just like what? The performance side of it?
Yeah, the collaborative aspect of it, the sense of community, the feeling of connecting to material that's meaningful, the joy of getting to sing a song, like all of the above. Mm-hmm. And traveling, I got to travel from such a young age, so I have the love of getting to come to experience different places. I mean, my first time in Philly, if I remember correctly, was I did Adventures in Babysitting when I was 15, and then back then you used to do press tours. Now they just do junkets where you sit in a hotel room and talk to people.
Satellite.
But back then we went to Minneapolis, Philly, Kansas City, New York, and so that was part of the joy of it, was getting to have these experiences, walk down a street that I'd never walked on before. Okay. That's one of the many, many, many things about being an actor that I love. The showbiz part of it turns out not so much, that's the hard part. That's the part that's just sort of a drag sometimes, but the opportunity to be in rooms with people and delve into something, create something together, that's golden for all time.
And you still love it?
Love that part
Do
of
you?
it. Yes.
When did you know this was a career and not just I'm having fun?
I mean, I guess probably by the time I did Adventures of Babysitting, that was a word that people, when we were doing the press tour, that's a word people were using. I was like, career, like, you know,
Right. I'm 15.
I never thought about it, but that's when I think it started to occur to me in that sense. And then I started to go, oh, well, I guess I have to do things to try to build a career. But it's still, that's never been like something I feel like I'm very good. Like, that's not my forte.
Okay.
I know, like, I remember seeing Madonna's first appearance on American Bandstand. So Lucky Star, that was her first single.
Right.
It had come out, it was a big hit. So she's on American Bandstand, not super famous yet. And Dick Clark is like, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to rule the world. And I watched, and this is years later that I saw it. It's like she was right. She did do that. I've never felt that way. Like, but there are people like that's what they're like. I'm gonna be a star. I'm gonna do this. You know, good for them. I don't know what that's
It's not
like.
you.
I don't know. I just don't know how you do that. I don't know what it's like.
So it's really about the work, liking to perform, interacting with people, and not all the stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, and I'm grateful. Like, if the stuff means that I can like meet cool, amazing people and have these experiences, I'm grateful for that. And I'm aware that if, you know, being a part of something that's famous helps open up doors for other work, I'm aware that, you know, winning awards can be helpful, but it's not the end goal. It can never be the end goal. How could it ever be the end goal? Because it's like that passes. The work,
you get it,
the
then
work,
what?
yeah, the work lives.
I got this. Now I'm done.
Yeah, the people who win awards, sometimes they win an award and then they don't work for 2 years. I mean, it's such a fickle, weird business. Like, that's not the point. So anyway.
When we came in the room, our director was like, oh, Broadway rent, I wonder if he'll sign my playbill. Like, know you from that. Fanatical sounds a little extreme, but that kind of audience loves that.
Yeah, sure.
Star Trek, Trekkies, they love that.
Yes.
Like, you've been a part of things where it's a really deeply, you know, kind of invested audience. Like, what's that like?
But I think what both fandoms share is it's not just like they don't just love the trappings of it. They love the soul of it. They use language to talk about it, about how much it's changed their lives, changed the way they think about their lives. It's helped them make choices about what they do with their lives. That's their level of engagement with the work itself. I don't mean to denigrate being a fan of something that you really love and are excited by, but it's just, it goes a little deeper. And there's also a pretty big, if you like the Venn diagram of Rent and Star Trek fans, it's pretty big. There's a lot of, you know, cross, you know. And because both works are also pretty hopeful, ultimately. They're about community. They're about people coming together to try to rise above challenges and that trying to look for the best of us.
Coming up next, he's been a trailblazer for the LGBTQ plus community, which clearly hasn't always helped him get jobs.
They were afraid. All the bean counters and the powers that be were afraid.
So you take your voice, your success very seriously. Like, are you, I mean, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Would you define yourself as activist?
Yeah.
Actor? You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and I grew up really influenced by singers, really, at the time, like in the 80s and 90s. That's when I was experiencing like Live Aid. I forget what it was called, but Artists Against Apartheid. There were these.
We're not going to play Sun City.
Yeah, exactly.
All
yeah,
the way back to that. Yeah.
So like being awake to it at this sort of very, you know, this age when I was in my teens of like, oh, people who are famous and artists that I love and admire are also using their voices to try to make the world a better place. That made a really deep impression on me. Mm-hmm. So then when I had this much of a platform, and that wasn't a word that was even being used then, now it's like platform anyway, but that was a seed that was planted that was very important. Like, if I did have the chance to have anybody's eyes on me and ears on what I had to say, then I wanted to try to do something to help make the world a better place. Yeah.
Taking that stance, I'm using my voice. I'm using it for good. The theme of the show. I'm going to be an activist and take this seriously. Did that make it harder to continue along the journey?
No, it didn't make it harder. But there may be executives in some rooms who are like, oh, we can't work with that guy because of what he said about X, Y, or Z thing. I don't know. If that's the case, it's never come to my ears and been made known to me, but it might be. And if that's the case, then what am I going to do? I can't
You're
change.
okay with it?
Yeah, I mean,
you have to be.
I have to be. It's like once you're out public with these things, you can't. I wouldn't want to retract them anyway, but you can't. They're out, right? So, yeah. I just can't imagine it being another way for myself. But I also understand why some people are a little more cautious about these things to a certain extent. I feel I have a little more understanding of it now that I have 2 kids, in the sense that I'm aware, like, yeah, I got to protect my family to a certain extent, and especially now in the age of social media and all the other nonsense that's happening, like, if I'm sticking my neck out too far, would that possibly rain down on them?
Right.
That is something that is part of my awareness now that it wasn't before. But at the same time, I will always advocate for justice where I can, and fairness where I can, and equality where I can, and all of the things that
And that's just part of it to you.
Yeah.
I was reading your bio, going through your bio, and it kind of struck me similarities to some of the other guests we've had who have talked about, we've had, Native American actors who said that they then carry the torch for a whole group of people. We've had, Shirley Ralph and people who were kind of trailblazing in the African American community, and we have to now, whether or not you want it, people kind of put it on your shoulder.
Yeah.
In reading your bio, it's hard to believe that one of the articles labeled you the first openly gay Broadway performer. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way.
But I don't think it can be can't be totally accurate, but it was certainly one of the very few.
Okay.
Even at the time, believe it or not, like as gay friendly as theater has been in so many ways over the years, and certainly in content that was being produced much before TV and film had content.
Okay.
There still weren't that many people who were like really that out and really that open. And some of them weren't at the time that they, like, B.D. Wong wasn't out when he won the Tony for M. Butterfly, but then he came out years later, right?
Okay.
Nathan Lane wasn't out when he won his Tony for Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, but then he came out later. So it's broadened over the years, but at the time, and it was sort of like the open secret in the community. Like, it was just people weren't fully going there to like be open about it in public, but they weren't necessarily closeted in the workplace. So it was that line.
But once you were, once it was out there and open, did it, the same responsibility I was talking about, it all of a sudden were you now championing a cause or opening doors, whether or not it was something you wanted to do?
Well, I did want to open doors, though. That's the thing. And because I was fairly young, I was in my early 20s, one of the main reasons I wanted to be that source of whatever I could be, on this scale. Again, it was like people who were paying attention, but there's still lots of people who weren't necessarily paying attention. Right. But people were. It was really for young people. Like it's gotten so much better for young people in so many ways who are working through their identities, especially depending where they live. Certain places it's still not great, but in other places it's like there's so much more acceptance, especially among their own generation. There's so much more structure of support within schools, within communities. So that's great. But like at the time in the early 90s, that was still, it was pretty dire for a lot of young people who were trying to figure themselves out, and especially in small towns. So that was one of my biggest hopes, that whatever I could do as a young person myself, relatively young person myself, to help shine a light and give them someone to look toward for their own sake, to know that they don't have to necessarily be afraid of who they are. That was the real initial impetus. And then, now as I've gotten older, that's still the case, but now especially having a family through surrogacy, like that's another area of like just of advocating for family equality, family recognition.
Having to kick open doors is never funny. I don't mean it that way. But when I'm talking about first openly gay on Broadway, and you kind of go, okay. Mm-hmm. Then first openly gay in the future, like on Star Trek. I'm sitting there like, so they got spaceships and can go all over the world, but have never had an openly gay. That just seemed odd.
I know.
But I guess it's still like a battle that you had to kind of fight.
And we've gotten to know the fantastic people who are part of the Star Trek legacy before us, and back in Next Generation, which was in the '90s, those actors were agitating for these storylines, for these characters, and they were just met with stonewalling from the network and from the studio, and they were afraid. All the bean counters and the powers that be were afraid, and so yeah, it was fun. It took a long time. And there in the Star Trek community, there is a really big LGBT fan presence, and they were like waiting and waiting and waiting for 50 plus years, and then finally we got to do it. Wilson Cruz, who's also an activist, myself, and we'd been friends for 20 something years, and we got to do this together. That was really cool.
Coming up, why his tour performing music may be his favorite part of his career.
I mean, I love getting a script and playing a character, but doing concerts is kind of like I get to be myself.
So you're kind of traveling around, you're doing one-man shows. Tell us about the show.
This is a collection of songs that I love to sing. Some of them from shows that I've done, some of them shows I haven't done, some of them from rock and roll and pop stuff that I grew up listening to. It's a real grab bag of just music that has touched me. I mean, I love getting a script and playing a character, but doing concerts is kind of like I get to be myself, and which is its own kind of cool thing. And I have wonderful musicians that I've been working with off and on for many years. So it's just one of those ways I get to sustain my creative soul and try to give back and try to shine a light on some artists maybe that people haven't heard of. Also sing things that people really do know really well. It's like it's a combination of all of it.
And people can see it. It's kind of moving around the country.
Yeah, we've been doing like City Winery is the most recent version. Like we're doing a bunch of City Winery, which is really nice that they're giving me this chance. And I do these concerts also with Adam Pascal, who's one of the original members of the cast of Rent with me. He played Roger originally. We do concerts together, so we kind of sprinkle them through the year, different places, whenever we can. Yeah.
What's next? You have a lot going on in your career. You're doing the tour, you're doing the shows, you're doing the movies, you're doing Broadway. What are we looking for next?
There's a really wonderful play I did a developmental workshop of a little over a year ago that we're going to get to do an off-Broadway production of in the spring. It hasn't been announced yet, so I can't really say much more, but I'm very excited about it because it's a really special play, and it's a one-man play. It wasn't written for me, but I got to do this workshop, and it was very meaningful, and I think it has a chance to make an impact. It's a very special play about a lot of things that we've been dealing with as a culture over the last several years, and this writer found a way to do that in I think a way that really penetrates.
Coming up next on The Pulse, how Anthony Rapp defines using his voice for good.
If we all shift the needle this much, that starts to get really exponential.
You described yourself as an activist.
Yeah.
What should we be paying attention to that you are advocating for, want to make people aware of?
Well, I mean, allyship right now, I think, is one of the biggest things that we all can do, especially those of us who are living in safer spaces, in cities and states that have a little more protection happening, because protections and rights and freedoms are being stripped away all over the place, especially for our trans and non-binary members of our society. So whatever we can do to help support the local grassroots organizations in some of these states, because federal money is being stripped away, government money is being stripped away in those states especially. So I would encourage people to put on your big ally hat and try to find where can I make a difference, where can I make an impact, because it's going to be like person to person in a way sometimes, because these agencies, some entire agencies are folding or being just completely dismantled right now. So I that's one of the areas I think that we really need to look out for each other.
We end every episode of The Pulse. As I said, the theme is use your voice for good. I ask everybody, that's the final question. What does use your voice for good mean to you?
Well, I think it means speaking up and speaking out when you see injustice. I think it means lending a hand where you can. And I think it means taking stock of what you're doing in your life, whether or not it really connects to your values, and are there things that you can do that might be able to shift the needle? Because if we all shift the needle this much, that starts to get really exponential, and then we can make a real difference.
Guys, thanks so much for watching The Pulse today with Anthony Rapp. He is a singer, he's a performer, and he was great to have here. Thank you so much, and I leave you today as I always do, reminding you whenever you can, use your voice for good, and have a good one.